Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of More to Explore. And today we're excited for the return of the manatees as they return to the warm waters in Florida. We are live this Monday morning and thankful that you're joining for us wherever you are. Happy Thanksgiving to our viewers who celebrate. And if you're looking for the best Black Friday deal, it's really explore.org, which is still 100% free. My name is Brian Bird, and I'm joined by once again with the one and only Mike Fitz. Mike, good morning.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you happen to be around the world. I'm glad that you're here and I'm happy to be here with you. And for those of you who are new to Explore.org, welcome to the community. And of course, welcome back to all of our longtime viewers. We're the world's largest live nature cam network with something like, I don't know, 180, 190 live cameras around the world. I've actually lost count. But anyway, uh, we have a lot of cams all over the world, and Brian and I are here live with you. So if you have comments or questions for us, then drop those in the chat today. We will be doing our best to look for those during the broadcast. And if you're gathering with friends and family for Thanksgiving this week in the United States, I want to know which cams you'll be sharing with your people. That's one of the tricks I'd use to get our conversations away from the garbage that's on television. We'll put up one of the live cams on the TV. So I encourage you to do that as well. And I'm wondering if you're going to do that, what cams are you going to be sharing? So drop those in the comments along the way. Right now, we're looking at some recorded footage of manatees from Blue Springs and Homosassa Springs in Florida. Manatee season is just about to begin on our manatee cams at Blue Spring State Park, Ellie Schiller, Homosassa Springs State Park, and Silver Springs State Park in Florida. And to give us a preview of that phenomenon, I spoke with Cora Berchem, the director of multimedia and a manatee research associate for the Save the Manatee Club, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting manatees, their aquatic habitat, and aiding in the recovery of manatees throughout the world. Here is our conversation. Cora, thanks so much for joining me once again. It's always fun to talk manatees with you, and I'm looking forward to another manatee season on Explode.org.
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to be here.
So I've asked you this question before. But my first question I always do like to ask you, because manatees are such a unique group of animals in themselves. There's only a few species in the world, but maybe you could just talk about what makes a manatee a manatee.
Yeah, like you said, manatees are really unique animals. Most people have heard of dolphins, whales, walruses, all these kinds of animals, but a manatee is just something that is a bit unfamiliar to most people. So they're just this really peaceful, large animal living mainly in Florida, about 800 to 1200 pounds, so very large animals. They do not like the cold. We call them the real Floridians because they like that warm water. That's why we can see them in the winter time at these warm water aggregation sites. And just something that fascinates me is their resiliency. They have no significant natural predators, but they just face so many obstacles, but somehow they're always able to go through there and recuperate. And they just all have their own personalities, which make them so unique.
And you mentioned that they don't like the cold. So why are warm water refuges so important for the Florida manatee?
Yeah, so manatees, although they look really big and kind of blubbery, they only have about an inch of fat layer, which is very, very little for such a large animal. So in the winter time, when the ambient water, like the rivers and the coastal areas, drop below 68 degrees Fahrenheit, they have to find these warm water sources, which can be natural springs, as well as the outflow of power plants. So anything above 68 degrees. That's why we see these manatees migrating to these warm water sites right now with the onset of cold, because they're so cold intolerant that they need to go to these warm water sites.
And this allows us to place some webcams in some special areas and watch the manatees. So let's talk about the webcams in brief. We have many of them scattered in different places in Florida with Save the Manatee Club. Can you talk about where the cameras are located?
Absolutely, yes. So we have two cameras at Blue Springs State Park, which is in Orange City, Florida, just a bit northeast of Orlando. Those were our first webcams, and they're also one of our most popular ones because they pretty predictably show large aggregations. I'm talking hundreds of manatees during the winter time. So we do have an above and an underwater camera there. In addition, we have, again, an above and underwater camera at Homosassa Springs State Park, which is on the other coast. It's a little north of Tampa Bay, and another warm water spring where manatees in the wintertime come and congregate for that warm water. And then really exciting news, earlier this year, we finally launched another set of webcams at Silver Spring State Park, where we don't predictably have manatees all year long, but we do see a lot of animals on that camera as well, such as alligators and birds and tons of fish. So they're really unique. And the underwater camera is actually a 180-degree camera, which people can go in on YouTube or on our site and actually move it around themselves to get like different views, which makes it really unique. So if you're not able to visit the springs, or if you don't live in Florida, the webcams are a really great way to kind of bring the manatees home into your living room and watch them.
And I enjoy that as well, especially on a cold, blustery day where I live in Maine, and it's below 0 Fahrenheit outside, and it's just maybe not a pleasant day to be out of doors. You can go and visit these warm water springs virtually. And I love seeing the variety of wildlife too. So we get to see, the manatees on there. They are really special. What can we expect to see on the webcams this winter? I think we're going to get to see some large gatherings of manatees. So there's that and many other things. What's happening on the webcams throughout the winter?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a very unseasonably warm fall and winter so far. Actually, today was the first day where it got a little bit colder, and the manatees are starting to come back. So I'm definitely expecting, large aggregations of manatees on those webcams. We do see the occasional alligator, especially at Blue Spring and Silver Spring. I'm hopefully expecting record number of calves again, definitely for Blue Spring, probably for Homosassa as well. So it's just really fun to see, our old timers come back, our manatees, see the mothers with their young calves, and also see some of the manatees that are outfitted with satellite tracking devices for monitoring purposes. So we'll definitely see some of those. And then, like you said, there's always other things to see as well. I mean, there's a variety of fish and birds and all kinds of things that, people that love nature, they love to watch. So even if you're not into the manatees, you may be seeing some other animals there in the cameras as well.
You mentioned that, manatees are tough, they're resilient, but they face an uncertain future. And I know that Save the Manatee Club is dedicated to making sure that manatees have a future on planet Earth. So can you talk about your organization? How does Save the Manatee Club work to ensure manatees have a future alongside us?
Yes, so we are a nonprofit organization, and we've been around for a little over 40 years now. Our primary focus is really on outreach and education. So we do that through events and festivals, presentations, our webcams where people can learn about manatees, social media, all those kind of things. We also are very involved in legal advocacy for manatees. So every time there is, say, a new development project that's being built, or any laws that are being passed that affect manatees and their habitat, that's when we speak up. And then in addition, we are a founding member of the Manatee Rescue and Rehabilitation Partnership. So that's a big group of over 20 different organizations. And we are very involved there as well with our research, as well as assistance with rescue and releases, both staff-wise as well as financially. So lots of different ways and lots of different levels where we're involved to try to make a better future for these guys.
And what about the future? Let's, I want to know what your prognosis is for the future of Florida manatees. Are you hopeful for their long-term survival?
I think working for Save the Manatee Club, or working with manatees in general, you kind of have to be hopeful, because otherwise it would be a very depressing position. Unfortunately, we had a very large die-off of manatees happening between 2020 and 2022. That was an unusual mortality event where we lost over 2,000 manatees, which is a very large chunk of the population if you're looking at dealing with maybe around 8,000 or so manatees, which sounds like a really large number, but if you're losing that many in 1 year, that can have a really devastating impact on the population. However, we're kind of seeing some progress there. We're seeing some seagrass regrowing, meaning manatees have those food sources. Especially at Blue Spring, we have been seeing a lot of new calves. We've seen more reproduction again, which is a positive sign. So I think there is a long way to go, just because all of these issues that they're facing, from watercraft to pollution to habitat loss and algae blooms, I think all of them are definitely on the rise. But at the same time, I always like to say, most of these problems are problems that are human caused, so it's also really our responsibility to fix them. So I am hopeful that, you know, if we all work together, we can try to kind of turn that wheel and hopefully guarantee a better future for them, especially after this unusual mortality event, which really was a wake-up call for a lot of people. It's sad that it had to come to that, to get manatees into the public attention because of that, but I do think that a lot of people are invested in their future. So I am hopeful for sure, yes.
Yeah, like you said, it's within our power as people and as a civilization to make sure that manatees are protected, because it's not like it's a volcano or something out of our control that's imperiling Florida manatees. It's us. So we can be the change we want in the world to make sure that manatees have a future on Earth. One last question for you, Cora, before I let you go. The manatees are long-lived. This is something that I learned by talking with you and reading about the research that Save the Manatee Club has done. So we get to see some of these long-lived manatees coming back to certain springs every year. We get to see them on the webcams. Are there specific manatees that you're looking forward to seeing this winter?
Yes, absolutely. So at Blue Spring State Park, I'm very involved in the photo ID research, which means we count and identify the manatees every morning during the winter months. And some of them we can track back to literally to the 1970s, which was long before I ever started working there. But it's almost like having family come home. So there's certainly individuals that I am very excited to see. I guess starting with some of our old timers like Merlin and Brutus. They have been around since the early 1970s when Jacques Cousteau made his famous documentary, and they've been returning every winter. So obviously hoping to see these guys. A lot of our adoptees, one of my favorites certainly is Annie, who has had a whole bunch of calves at Blue Spring, and who I'm always excited to see. And then really last but not least, we released a very large number of rehabilitated manatees, both earlier this year as well as last year. And one of them was a manatee named Mary Kate, who I actually helped rescue. We hoop netted her from the research canoe to get her into rehab, and she was released earlier this year. Unfortunately, she lost her tracking gear pretty much after her release very quickly. So she has not been sighted since, which makes me a little bit nervous. But that's definitely one I'm hoping. I'm really excited to see this season, and just seeing how all the releases, how they're doing, how they've been doing over the summer, and just seeing them return to Blue Spring. And hopefully everyone is healthy and in good condition, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
Myself as well. So it sounds like, yeah, we have a lot to look forward to on the manatee cams this year. And Cora, it's always great to talk with you. I always learn something about manatees every time we speak. So thanks again for taking the time to join us once again.
Absolutely.
And thanks again to Cora and Save the Manatee Club for their work to protect the Florida manatee. The manatee cams place us in this really special position to better understand the seasonal rhythms of manatees. Without them, I certainly would not know nearly as much about manatees as I do today. And we get to see them relaxing on the cameras. We get to see the calves nursing from time to time. We get to see some playful behavior once in a while, and even close-up views of their bodies. And Brian, before the program, you and I were talking about this really cool clip of just like a manatee's open mouth.
Yeah.
And how, you see manatees from above if you're like in a boat or something like that. You only get this perspective when you're underwater with them, like through the webcams.
Yeah, 100%. This is by far my favorite clip that we've pulled.
It's one of these amazing things that we get to do through this technology, is really get a great look at their anatomy and how these animals are put together and how they're adapted to forage in these environments. on seagrass. There was a question, Merritt asked, what else do they eat? It really is, like Cora said, seagrasses and aquatic vegetation. So maybe if a plant from a riverbank or something falls in and it's tasty for a manatee, they'll end up eating that. But really, it's seagrasses that they happen to rely upon. So by watching, yeah, again, the manatees gathering at the warm water springs each winter, I think we are more in tune with their needs, and their needs become more tangible to us. And if you want to learn more about manatees, Cora Berchem will join me again in a live chat on December 11 about the journey that manatees take to get to and from their wintertime warm water refuges. And you can watch that right here on explore.org. Cora also mentioned that we can get to know individual manatees through the cams, and observing the nuanced lives of individual animals is one thing that is special about many of the webcams on explore.org. Along those lines, Brian, we're pleased to welcome a new pair of bald eagles to the explore.org community.
Definitely. Super excited for another bald eagle cam, and this one comes from Trempealeau, Wisconsin. So the cam is the Trempealeau Eagles. And so, Mike, what can you tell us about this resident pair?
This is Mr. and Mrs. T, fool. So they're that's their nickname. I like their nicknames. Big fan of Mr. T. But anyway, this pair has occupied this nest for at least 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And last year they hatched 2 eggs. And if you're a fan of the Decorah Eagles in Iowa, you'll recognize the courtship and nesting schedule for the Trempealeau Eagles. Fall and early winter are the seasons when Mr. and Mrs. T reaffirm their pair bonds. And this includes nestoration activities and some flirting between the birds as they build their nest and get it ready for eggs. There can be moments of copulation at this time too, although productive mating ramps up in January and in February. Egg laying begins in mid to late February, and hatching occurs between late March and early April. And the eaglets usually fledge in this area from mid to late June. And thanks to our camera partner, the Raptor Resource Project, who worked with us to make this webcam a reality. And one more thing, since we're on the subject of Mr. and Mrs. T, I pity the fool who doesn't watch Mr. and Mrs. T. If I can get a Mr. T soundbite into any of our live cams going forward, I am going to do that. And Brian, I asked that everyone at the beginning of the show to share what cameras they're going to share with their families during Thanksgiving. And a KMB wrote in on YouTube and said the West End Eagles, Catalina Island, 3 cams. They are awesome. Yeah, certainly one of the more scenic and beautiful, I think, cameras that we have of bald eagles anywhere is that West End nest. So really, really pretty. Thanks for sharing that with us. If you have other comments and questions for us, drop those in the chats. We'll be looking for them during the broadcast. As we enter late fall and the beginning of winter, we're seeing a shift in the activity of many animals. The eagles, they're busy sprucing up their nests, but migrating waterfowl, they're gathering in gigantic flocks at their wintertime refuges. And Brian, we've also been enjoying some of those scenes in California recently.
Yeah, definitely. In Sacramento, California, we've been seeing just so many, what I think are ducks, and just so many where it's like the camera can't even like process how many there are. We get a little bit more of a wide shot here, just how cool and just the massive migration we have here.
It is crazy. Yeah, things are busy when the camera view gets all pixelated. There's just so much movement from all of the birds that there's too much information for the camera to really kind of register and transfer. So it's too much data for the camera in those situations. And these are amazing scenes. This is Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge. It was established to protect and provide habitats for birds, fish, and other wildlife in the Central Valley of California, where more than 95% of wetlands have been lost due to development like roads and homes, business spaces, parking lots, and especially agriculture. It's a place that looks quite different throughout the year because the refuge is intensively managed to create different types of habitat. For example, refuge staff create ponds that attract the waterfowl in November and December by flooding certain areas of the refuge. So that's where we're seeing all of these ducks and geese gathering at right now. The flooding efforts happen through fall and spring, and then the ponds are left to dry in late spring through summer. And when the ponds are drawn down at that time of the year, seed producing plants germinate, they grow. There's a lot of invertebrates that live in that habitat at that time of the year. Those things become food for the waterfowl and other wetland species when they're flooded again in the fall. Late November and early December is the peak of the waterfowl gathering at the refuge with ducks and geese. And you can see flocks of tens of thousands of ducks and geese on the webcams. And just in this footage right here, there's that pair of mallards right at center, but the rest of them, the majority of them look like they are greater white-fronted geese. So very beautiful birds overall. And it's hard to beat a mallard that's in sort of like its peak plumage there when it's trying to attract a mate. Just gorgeous animals all around. And thanks to our cam partners, the Friends of the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for helping make this cam, excuse me, a reality. And then wintering habitat, it's critical to the survival of North America's breeding birds, just as breeding habitat is necessary for them in the summer. Excuse me, it's really two sides of the same coin, Brian. And we're going to head across the continent to see what's happening for some reproduction.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely the pupping for Seal Island. In the summertime, we have our puffins, but now in the wintertime, we get to see some new baby seals. So it wouldn't be Explode.org winter season without the return of seals to Seal Island, including little pups like this from a recording from last year.
Yeah, thanks. I needed a little bit of a break there to get a piece of buzz out of my throat or whatever that was. But yeah, on the other side of North America from California, it's the time to see gray seals on Seal Island in Maine. They go there to give birth and mate. So the Seal Island cams is one of those cameras that I love to watch, especially in December and January. This is the same island where our famous puffin cams are located. Although daylight hours are limited here in late fall and winter, there's a lot of interesting behavior to watch. Female seals give birth on the island and nurse their pups. Male seals set up territories on the island to mate with females in the weeks after they give birth. All this time, the pups get fatter and fatter. A seal pup can gain a few pounds of body mass per day by drinking mother's milk, which is something like 60% fat. I mean, that's even richer than heavy cream. It's maybe more closer to butter, straight up butter than anything. It's extraordinarily energy rich. The pups, and it has to be because the pups are weaned in about 16 days.
Wow.
So just a really short period of time that mother cares for them. Then after that, they use their fat reserves and their energy to sort of transition their bodies and their digestive tract to get ready for preparation for a diet of fish when they finally enter the sea. So they're usually on the island for 3 to 4 weeks after they have been weaned. And thanks to the National Audubon Society for working with us again to bring gray seals to the world. I'm really looking forward to that. And Brian, we had somebody asking or wrote in about what cameras they're going to share with people during Thanksgiving, and MW wrote in and said, I'm looking forward to the manatees returning to the cameras. They always bring me peace. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks for sharing that with everybody, MW. The gray seal cameras, when they're online during Thanksgiving, that's another one of the cameras that I like to share with my family when I'm gathering for Thanksgiving. The manatee cameras are another. Any of the underwater cameras really at this time of the year, like the tropical reef cameras that we have, maybe down in Utila Island at Utopia Village. I think those are some really fantastic cameras to share with everybody. Brian, do you have any?
Definitely. I was going to mention definitely any of the underwater cameras. It's the easiest way to look like you have an impressive fish tank. If you don't have an impressive fish tank and you don't want to do the maintenance, definitely checking out any of our underwater cams is definitely a good substitute.
Yes, absolutely.
And as far as events coming up, we're wrapping up the year. So we have quite a few events coming up. So this week we have the AfriCam show tomorrow, Tuesday at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. There's no Wild Moments this show this week for Thanksgiving. And then next Monday, we have another episode of Drawn to Explore. If you caught our episode last Monday doing a polar bear portrait, join us Monday, December 2 for an underwater scene. And then, as Mike mentioned before, coming up on Wednesday on December 11 is a full manatee live chat with Cora from Save the Manatee Club. And then in 2 weeks, Monday, December 9th, we're going to have a More to Explore show, and we're going to do the best of 2024. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit more about that show?
Yeah, I can't remember if we started this last year or the year before, Brian. But anyway, Explore.org is very active on social media. It's one of the only reasons perhaps to go onto social media because we're not there to spin anger or vitriol or we're there really just to share sort of like the wonder that we see on the cameras. So we go through the analytics of all of the different posts that we put on social media throughout the year, and we see which ones were most popular just based on how many reactions and likes and things like that they got. And then we will allow people to vote amongst those for their favorite moments of the year. So you will get to vote for them. You can go to explore.org/contest starting on, let's see, oh, Brian, what day were you going to do that? I slipped my mind completely and I forgot to write it down.
No, I apologize. I'm slipping the date, but you can see right here, this is explore.org/contest. We are 6 days away till voting opens.
Okay, so it's coming up at the end of the week. Thanks for that, because it completely skipped my mind and I forgot to write it down. But anyway, go to explore.org/contest in 6 days. If you have other, and you can vote for those. And I'm curious too, like if you look through those different moments and you're like, hey, I remember something that's not in here that was really memorable or special to me. I want you to write that in as an honorary mention in the comments, and I'll be looking for those as well. So please join us coming up at the end of the week for our contest there. We'll announce the winners again, our moments of the year on December 9th.
Yeah, and definitely, as Mike mentioned, definitely share your favorite moments, whether you have a snapshot or a clip, or even just tell us the story. We'd love to share them as well. And as Mike mentioned, please do follow us on your favorite social media platform, including our main YouTube channel at Explore Live Nature Cams. And Mike, as far as following us on social media, how else can people get involved with Explore.org?
We're always looking for volunteers, and we have an army of volunteers that operate our cameras or help to manage the comments on either on YouTube or on Explore.org itself. So if you think you maybe have a couple of hours per week to help us out with that, we would love to have you along. And you can go to explore.org/volunteer, fill out the form there, and we'll get back to you with more information. And thanks again to all of our volunteer camera operators and moderators.
Awesome. Thank you again. And that is our show for today. We're going to leave you with some more manatee highlights. And I want to give a special thank you to all of our moderators, camera operators, and of course, my co-host, Mike Fitz. And join us again on December 9th for the end of the year Best of Explore wrap up and on the next episode of More to Explore. And until then, happy exploring.